Hey, Jelana. Hey, Blair. What's going on, guys?
Hey, how are you?
Thanks. I'm great. Just finishing up this meal. How you guys doing?
Hey, good for you. Love it. We're good, thanks. Excited to have you with us today.
Absolutely.
I see you
Blair,
in
how
your
you?
you're in your fancy office again.
You like?
I like it. I like it.
How you
Good
doing, Blair?
stuff. I think we got on. Are you on mute? Yeah, he must be on mute. I think he's working on some
No,
technical stuff.
sorry. I'm good. Hakeem, how have you been other than hungry?
Pretty good. A little busy,
Good.
but
It's
good.
good to see you, man.
Yeah, we've got Kaya with us.
How are you, Kaya?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good. What city are you in, Kaya?
I'm in Fishers, Indiana.
Nice.
Yeah.
You go to IU?
I graduated actually from Ball State in
Okay,
Muncie,
nice.
Indiana. In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's a rival right there. Right? For
What
sure.
sport did
For
you What
sure.
sport did you play, Kaya?
So I was actually not a collegiate athlete. I went into ticket sales for both the Bulls and now the Pacers. So kind of got
That's
involved with
dope.
athletes that
Mhm.
with sports that way on the business side.
Mhm.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, she's doing some great stuff on the on kind of explain to Hakeem a little bit about what you're doing with women with the development side. We've been kind of talking a little bit about that. Something we can do, we can kind of work together on a little bit.
Yes, so I'm working on in Indianapolis, creating a space for young women to kind of get women between the ages of 18 to 25 to come together and kind of meet them where they're at and then pull them up further in their development and into their levels of achievement. Because right now they might not be like high performers, but they can be. So just getting them started from where they are to where they need to go next and achieving their dreams. And the whole program idea is called No Doors Closed. So basically unlocking that potential to open up any door in any room and any situation that they want to be in. So really excited to do that.
Gotcha. That's in Indianapolis, you said?
Yep, that's what I'm hoping to do and launch it in here in Indianapolis.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool. And is it going to be
Yeah,
something that's like physical and in person?
So I was like, is it going to be in person?
Yeah, like a physical like location, or is it just going to be like that's like I just want to make sure I'm getting the idea correctly, just in my head.
Mm-hmm. So if anything, like the in-person part would be something like groups and events.
Okay.
And then other kind of scenarios will probably play out virtually for what COVID is. But right
Definitely.
now, there's probably not going to be like a physical building or anything quite yet for it to be like a location spot.
Gotcha. How far is
Yeah.
Fishers from Indianapolis?
About 30 minutes, not that far.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
It's
lived
like a
in Fishers before
northeast
moving
suburb.
downtown, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Fishers. I feel like for some reason I feel like I've heard of Fishers more than a lot. Is Ball State in Fishers or no? Or is there something else in Fishers that I'm missing?
What
Or is
else
it
would
just
be in Fishers?
a suburb of
Fishers.
Indianapolis? That's
Think.
probably why I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
suburb of Indianapolis if you kind of think about it that way. And then we have the only Top Golf in Indiana, I guess. Hamilton, Hamilton Southeastern's located there, which Gary Harris, who's in the NBA, he came from that school.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's any other players. Football player was Joe Wright
Yeah.
from the Colts.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, here's a David Letterman went to Ball State.
Yeah, David Letterman was Ball State.
Okay.
He's probably the biggest legend guy that went to Ball State. It's like the notoriety thing there. Is that Letterman's a Ball State guy, so
That's awesome.
But yeah,
That's hilarious.
how far Muncie and Fishers are? What, an hour and a half maybe of each other? They're not that far, honestly.
No, about like 40 to an hour.
Okay.
Up the highway.
All right. Yeah. So Hakeem, I was just thinking about, you said you were going to start with asking us some questions. Remind me what you were thinking about, because I'm going to try to facilitate some good conversation around that too. That you and I had a little chance to chat about that a little bit.
what you're passionate about. Kai, what are you, Kai? I'm guessing it has to do something focusing on women, but what are you passionate about, Kai?
I am very passionate in like mentoring. I really like developing people. I think that's a strength I've had as well. So passing on information and learning and just growing. I really love that kind of thing.
Gotcha. I like that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That's pretty cool stuff. And I love the fact that you're trying to think about what you've learned in life, even as young as you are right now, and still kind of developing things that you're still thinking about mentoring, because mentoring is like a full circle, right? It's not only just what we offer, but then also what we can receive. And I think that's a lot of what this show is about too, how we can both give and receive from each other, for sure.
100%.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. All right, we got a few more people popping in here. Got a guy that said he just had a customer walk in. He'll be on in a sec. Mason. Yeah.
Hey Terry, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, Hakeem?
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Hey, Blair. Hey, Jelena.
Hi, how are you?
Good
You're looking
afternoon.
all sporty. Look at you all sporty today. I love it. I love it. Yeah, let's give it a couple more minutes. We got a few people running hot today. So,
No problem.
yeah.
No problem. No rush.
Hey, Kaya, was that article that I dropped in the chat the one that you were asking Jelana about when we first jumped on?
Yes.
Okay,
I think
great.
that's the one I saw.
Great.
Because then I was trying to look for like the more in-depth story of what Hakeem's background was, but then it was just like a few sentences. So then I'm like, is that it, or was there kind of more to come?
Yep, for sure, for sure. Did you find the full story then? Because I think you're right. I think now that I look at it, I must have just put like the teaser article in there, and maybe that full one didn't quite make the mainstream. Does that sound right?
Luckily, we've got the man, the myth, the legend with us right now, and I'm sure he can tell us all we want to know.
Right. That's right.
Definitely. How's everybody doing? Chase, how you doing, man? Lisa, how are you? Logan, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I am good.
Yay. Yeah.
Nice to see
So
everybody.
we got some people you can ask questions to now, Hakeem.
Yeah, guys, kind of before I get before we get started, and as we're letting people kind of come in, something that I like to get a lot of context from people in the room before speaking. And one thing I'd just like to know is just one, where you guys located, what school do you guys go to, or if you're not in school, what you're kind of doing right now, and then what you're passionate about. Lisa, if you want to start, that'd be great.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely not in school. I went to school in Texas at Texas Arlington, UT Arlington, and I was a track and field athlete there. And I was in Southern California for a while, and I just moved to Fort Collins, Colorado, where my sister is. To start a whole new whatever.
Whole new chapter. Whole new chapter. Here we go. Love it.
Fort Collins. And what was the other thing you asked?
What are you passionate about? What's your passion?
I am passionate about helping people find or deal with the things that they internalize as downfalls or things that are shortcomings about themselves, and realizing the self-talk, and then be able to transform that externally by just, first of all, having the awareness, and then whatever helps you get through it, whether it be through movement or through connection. I mean, I love fitness too, but I'm saying it's deeper than just sweating.
For sure.
That's really cool.
For sure. It is.
I appreciate
super
that,
cool.
Lisa. Nice meeting you. What about you, Chase? What city are you in? Are you a current athlete? If not, what type of role are you in today? And then what are you passionate about?
I'm from Indianapolis. I live in Fishers, Indiana. And Yep, I go to
There we
Marion.
go.
Yep, Marion University in Indianapolis. So like 30 minutes from my house.
Yep.
And I run track right now. I'm a long jumper, triple jumper, sprints, pretty much wherever my coach tells me to go.
That's awesome.
And I don't know, yeah, that's what we're passionate about. And so I don't know, a lot of things. Lately, I feel like I've been really thinking about unity. I feel like unity is a real big thing that is needed nowadays.
Interesting. Is
That's
that
really good?
That's really interesting. I like that. Unity.
Yeah.
I'll make sure I get it right. Dushyant, is that how I say it?
Yeah, Dushyant. Hey guys.
Hey
Dushyant,
Dushyant, hello.
How are you?
Good
How are
to
you
see
guys?
your face.
Oh my God, it's been so
Yay.
long.
I know. You. Here we go.
I can
Hey
introduce.
Sam, how are you?
Hey, Hakeem. I am a friend of Julana's from back when we were grad students in Indiana, which I don't want to say it now feels like a decade ago because it was literally a decade ago.
True. Literally and figuratively.
It was a while back. So
Yes.
stop guessing my age, and it's really good to meet all of you. Wow, I'd love to know everything about everyone on this call right now.
I know, super fun.
That's
So
awesome.
you'll have to tell us about your passion. We're gonna hear
Oh
it.
yeah, what are you passionate about, Dushyant?
I think I'm really passionate about. It's a tough question. I think two things definitely come to mind. One is just like the connections that we have with people. And Jelana, you and I reconnected after a while, and I feel like it just like if you have a true genuine connection with someone, the way you can like spark off and like continue where you left off. Really passionate about making those kind of connections and keeping them. And then from a work standpoint, I think I'm really passionate about design in general, and more specifically, I do a lot of business process design, and I really enjoy it. And I have a lot of sounds weird, but I have a lot of fun with business process design. Sorry.
Yay, that's awesome. Hey,
When
that's
you say
what
business
makes
process
things go.
design, like building
amazing.
systems for different businesses?
Yeah. It's
cool.
Think of it as like problem solving for an organization that involves multiple aspects of business in general.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Yes.
Logan, I know
Super
I met
needed.
you before. I know I met you before, Logan, but what are you personally passionate about? And I can't remember what city you're in.
I'm outside Chicago in Downers Grove, and then
Yay.
and then what I'm passionate about is I'm a Bonner Scholar at DePaul University, so it's like revolves around community service work. So I've always been really passionate about like non-profit projects, especially like education, equity, and equality. So yeah, that's where a lot of my research has gone.
Awesome stuff.
Got you. That's really cool.
Love it.
Sam, what's going on?
Not much. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a minute since last time. I think I saw you on a Zoom call. But how have things been? I don't know if we ever talked about what your passion is, and I can't remember what city you're in as well.
My passions are swimming and talking to people. To most accurately summarize it briefly. And yeah, no, I like anthropology. That's what I'm studying. Although I'm currently in the process of switching from a US uni to an Australian uni, which is like a whole other pile of paperwork in addition to all of the immigration paperwork I'm currently sorting through. So
What's a
my
uni?
life's
Yeah.
What is a uni?
University.
I love that.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
That is a UNI. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
I forget that people don't do that. They call it college.
I wanted the same thing, but I really did not want to ask.
Yeah, no, it's like
Hey, it's a good question.
saying like afternoon, I'll be like, oh yeah, like I'll see you this avo, or like avocado is avo, so like those two sound the same, which is really funny. But like, and like we have like Australian football, but nobody calls it football. Like if someone calls it football, they're gonna think you're British and talking about soccer. But it's footy. Like you go to the footy. Like no one calls it football. So like everything. Yeah, is university.
So fun. I love it. I love it.
Degree, but it's significantly cheaper for me to study at a university back home as a citizen than it is for me to study here as a non-citizen. I will be staying in the US though. I got myself a wonderful man.
Nice.
That's that. But
Do
yeah,
you,
no,
are you still an athlete, or you're done swimming?
I will never be done swimming. One thing, now that I think about it, that has always like baffled me in the US. So in the US, like the average age of the Olympic team is like all college age. Everyone is a college athlete. In Australia, the average age is like 25, 26. Like everyone's a few years out of university. So like back home, you don't just stop once you're done with school. Like that's not a thing. If you want to be serious about being an athlete, you go until like you stop getting better. So no, I'm not done with swimming. I'm kind of, I guess you could call it a hiatus. I never know how to pronounce that word. But yeah, so I redshirted last year, which is A, really unusual for a swimmer, but B, much needed. I was super sick my sophomore year, and then so I just like never really got back from that. But now I guess I'm just going to be trying to like train this next year. And I spoke to like the coach at SDSU, and he was like, yeah, like if you do a couple competitions and like you're good enough to make it back on the team, like we'd love to have you back in a year's time. So that's kind of my goal with swimming at the moment, is to get back on track, get back in the pool, which has been hard because they're all closed.
That's real.
And yeah,
it's awesome. And she's out of San Diego. I don't know if we mentioned that part, Hakeem.
Oh, okay,
but,
cool.
She's one of our Cali girls. we've got a crew of Cali kids in here. So
yeah.
Well, we are excited. Did we miss anybody, Hakeem? As far as
I'm not.
A little Q&A.
No, I appreciate the answer. Carly, how are you? Nice to see you.
I'm good. How are you?
Yay, Carly!
Nice to see you
Sorry,
again.
I popped on late. I had a double dog emergency, so I'm all good now.
Oh no!
That's
good to
awesome.
see you.
Nice to see you. One thing we were asking everyone, Carly, if you want to join the conversation, was I can't remember. Are you in Phoenix or no?
I am. I live in Scottsdale, but I say Phoenix to everybody else.
Gotcha. And what are you passionate about, Carly?
It's a great question, and I should have prepared since we already talked about it. I think a handful. I think one of my true passions, which I always find cheesy saying out loud, is I really feel like I'm meant to make positive change, and so I think I don't know necessarily what that is just yet, but I'm echoing. I think one of my main goals and one of my main passions that I'm excited to kind of see through, especially with Jelana, is just creating a better space for people like us in this group who are striving to be something bigger, making a difference. Oftentimes in the corporate world, I find myself not really fitting in, certainly with certain spaces I've used to be working in and things like that. It's just I'm looking for like-minded people to create change, I guess, is my biggest goal or passion.
So good. That's
really cool.
We're all in the right space if we're going to be change makers. That's what this looks like. That's what this looks like. I love that. So Hakeem, tell us a little bit about what was the thought process around what our passions are. I'm super curious about where your head is and where we're going to take this. There's so many ways we could go with this conversation today with you.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd love a little bit even more your feedback on the direction that you'd like me to take the conversation. But my thought process is, if we were doing this speech in person, I always try and get there a little bit earlier. And I think a lot of speakers tend to be very Hollywood. It's like, I'm in the green room, like, kids. Yeah, and like I'm on the floor, like sitting in the audience, like hanging out with everybody, trying to understand them. I think a lot of people do just cookie cutter presentations that are just memorized, that you could just do group to group to group to group to group. And essentially it's one, not bringing any value, and two, it's very just self-serving and look at me versus, like, I think the only way to capture attention from anyone is bringing value, whether that's education, information, or entertainment. And I think by providing some context to actually who I'm actually talking to versus having the ego and the thought to think that my cookie cutter presentation is going to, like, they're going to love this no matter what, versus like, no, like this, like if we didn't do this, like I would, like, this isn't a full room of college athletes where I'm not going to talk just about the value that you might get of, you know, in terms of mindset of, you might not have sports for the next year. That doesn't pertain to anyone in this room. And I could talk about that, but that wouldn't make the most sense in that sense. But it brings the most context and allows me to, like, my speaking style is improv, because like I have my points that I know I want to touch on, and my speaking style is that I tell my truths on who I am, so you have that context, and then I pontificate my thoughts that I think may bring value to the audience, shortly, like quick and to the point, and then I thrive in a Q&A setting because it extracts even deeper truths on the points that I touched on from my own story, and then the thoughts that I may have had, you know, my own personal theses on that you guys may want to go deeper on, or actually have individual questions that pertains to yourself. Because in my short life, I don't like to consider myself an expert in anything. Everything that I say is just, it's one man's opinion. But I speak only from like, I'm the quickest person to tell you I don't know. And like, because I'm not gonna, a lot of people will sit there and BS you and answer about a topic that they don't know. Like I'm a lot of my content on my social pages is a lot of different financial advice on a lot of different topics. So a lot of people ask me things about stocks, and I know like when I say nothing about stocks, because I don't have zero passion for it, zero patience for it, and could care less about the stock market. And so but like, I won't give you any type of stock advice or anything of that sort, or Bitcoin advice or Forex advice or anything, because I literally know nothing about it. It's not my language. But we're talking real estate, I've got something for you. We're talking self-awareness, I've got something for you. We're talking passion, I've got something for you. But versus a lot of people read a book and regurgitate it in their own words and call it a speech, and that's just personally not me. But sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but that's why I like to know everyone's passions, even though they were, you know, a little bit higher level. Sometimes I do that. Some people kind of get their own individual, you know, atlas to their life, and it's I love getting context, because context is extremely important.
Yeah. How do you feel that passion, that the things you're passionate about, created the trajectory in the life that you created? Because I know you've done a lot of really cool things, and like, maybe if you took us back to like when you were perhaps in the space that Chase is in right now. So you were in college, you know, you were an athlete, and you had to make some tough choices at that point in your life, and you had to figure out what your passions were. I'd love to just kind of take it from that point perhaps, and talk to us a little bit about like college athlete status to what happened next. Maybe touch on Haiti a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about what that life-changing experience was. A lot of people read that story before coming into this room with you today. So,
Gotcha. Cool.
Yeah.
So
we can start there.
Passion, I would even bring it back before college. And one thing that I pride myself on personally is, and if I could give a magic pill to anyone, it would be a pill that would instantly just give you an insane amount of self-awareness. And since I was a kid, I just felt that I've always had that, and I've always been unapologetic and never scared to hesitate to move off of my passions versus getting that outside validation on, is this okay if I do this? Or I would just do it, figure out if I liked it or not, and then move forward. Like just as I'm saying that, I'm just thinking about the different things I tried as a kid. Like I played ice hockey, I played baseball, I played soccer, I played football, I played basketball, I did karate, like did everything. But then thinking about like me personally, like one thing I've always prided myself on is being an entrepreneur, and that's just DNA. Like back when I was in 5th grade, we didn't call it entrepreneurship. I don't know what you'd call it. I just was doing what I thought was the right thing to do, which was at the time putting ads on Craigslist and cutting grass in everyone's like neighborhood, like all like in a 30-mile radius of where I grew up. Like my older brother would drive me around in his pickup truck and I'd cut grass. And when I got to middle school, I started a Skittles business, and I used to hustle Skittles. My mom used to go to Sam's Club. It cost $13 to buy a box. It was 36 bags in it, and I made $23 per box of Skittles that I flipped. And like back then, like I wasn't calling myself, I'm Hakeem, the entrepreneur. Like I didn't know why I was doing that. It was literally just pure DNA. Like, oh my gosh, Skittles cost $13. There's this many in it. My mom has a Sam's Club. We're doing it. Went to school with 2 backpacks every day. And when I got to college, and it's kind of like to hone back, like I never put myself in that box of I'm just an athlete. Like at the same time, like not to brag, I was wildly talented as an athlete, like at that time, but like I also just wasn't scared to pursue other things like in my downtime. Like when I went from high school to college that summer, my little brother had cracked his iPhone. And I've probably told this story to some people in this group, but my little brother cracked his iPhone for like the 10th time. And my dad was like, I'm not fixing it. It costs too much. Like you broke it too much. And I was like, let me check it out. And I went on YouTube, took it apart and figured it out. It took me about 6 hours, but I put it back together and went on Amazon, got a new screen, and it worked. And I was just like, wow, first of all, and the screen only cost $25, and the people at the mall were doing it for $100. And I was just like, ding, that's a business. And I showed up to campus my freshman year of college, like as a D1 athlete, but I was the iPhone repair guy. I fixed 3 to 4 phones a day, made $30 per screen that I fixed. And it's back, even then, this is 2011, entrepreneurship wasn't a hot word back then. It was just, that's what I did. Like that was, I had no idea why I was doing it. And just even go deeper with the iPhones, like still playing D1 football, it's now my sophomore year. I never threw out the cracked screens that I fixed because I thought it would just harm the environment. Naturally, I just saved them, had this massive box of cracked screens. I just didn't know what to do with it. And I never had the time to like Google, what could I do with it? One day, just had a couple extra minutes, Googled it. And there was this company in Alabama that would pay me $5 per screen that I sent to them that was cracked. I was like, what? And like I had like hundreds of screens and like made like a quick couple $1,000 like really quick. Then I was just like, no way. If I'm just finding this out, and it's been 2 years and I've been fixing phones, I wonder if these kiosks know. And I literally went to the mall kiosks, every iPhone repair shop, like in a 30-mile radius of my school. And I negotiated buying their cracked screens from them for $2.50. And then I would go back to my dorm room and box them up and ship it to this company in Alabama for $5 a screen, and literally flip cracked screens. And like that, back to the same thing. It was all DNA, like not just being very aware that I'm a college athlete, but I'm also doing this in my downtime at scale, like on fire doing it, because this is fun. And at the same time, so my degree in college was business with a concentration in real estate. And the girl I was dating, her dad had just started a house flipping business, and he took me under his wing. And while I was, same thing, playing D1 football, fixing phones, I flipped about 10 houses in North Jersey while I was in college. Like in my first 3 years of school, like I would purposely make my classes at night, 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. I was in North Jersey, knocking down walls, putting down floors, putting offers in on pre-foreclosures, like doing the whole 9 yards in like the real estate space. And had practice midday, like 2 to 4, and then had my classes at like I did 3 hours at night, like 6 to 10. And like, that was my life for 3 years. And then when me and his daughter broke up, like that whole relationship on the house flipping side kind of ended. So I got a quick real world education on real estate, which was nice. And then like at the same time as a college athlete, like I was always passionate about football. Honestly though, like taking you back to high school, basketball is my first love. Like I was quitting football completely my junior year of high school because I wanted to go to Duke University and like go to the NBA, be the next LeBron James, be the next Zion Williamson, whoever. And like my high school basketball coach told me, like, football teaches you things that I can't teach you on the basketball court. So stick with it one more year and we'll take it from there. And my junior year, being self-aware, was my breakout year on the football field. And I just realized, like, I love basketball a little bit more, but I am 10 times better at football than I am at basketball. And I knew I wasn't going to college unless I got a scholarship, because I wasn't doing loans and I wasn't paying for it. And I was like, I'm getting a scholarship playing football versus basketball. And like, that's why I focused on football. And once I got to college, I rode the bench. So I was a bench player for my first 3 years, never saw the field. It was rough. You know, you have those moments thinking about transferring, those moments of like the other guys who kind of came in with you, rode the bench, who just either just quit or made all the different excuses and kind of walked away from the sport. I just always deep down knew I was good enough. It was just like, wasn't my time. Like the guy who was in front of me was the same height, same weight. He was just genuinely better than me. And like that, like it hurt to like swallow that, but like having to put that work in and try and get my way on the field some way, somehow, it was like I didn't move. It's just funny how the trajectory of your life can change by like such small inflection points. I moved to tight end my senior year. It was 9 days into training camp. The main reason why I moved is because I wanted to get an MBA if I could get it for free. I wasn't going to get an MBA in 4 years of college. I was only going to get it if the school brought me back for a fifth year and paid for my fifth year. And they weren't going to pay for my fifth year if I rode the bench for 4 years. So I was like, the only way to get this MBA is if I actually play this year. The only way to play this year is not going to be at receiver, because I'm still playing behind the same guy I've been playing behind since my freshman year. And I moved to tight end 9 days into camp, put on 40 pounds in that month. I used to eat quick tip, if anyone wants to gain 40 pounds in a month, eat cottage cheese with hard-boiled eggs and celery in like a bowl and chase it with like Gatorade or something, because it's pretty disgusting, and eat pizza with every meal. And I put on 40 pounds in a month. It didn't look too pretty. It took like a couple months to tighten it back up. I had like chipmunk cheeks. Like it was funny. But like first game of my senior year, I got my first catch. Second game, I got my first touchdown, and then started every game after that. And like coaches asked me if I wanted to come back for a fifth year, told me the NFL was a possibility if I put some work in over the summer. And this is kind of when this is May of 2015, just finished my senior year, just graduated, and went on a missionary trip with my mom, my dad, my grandma, out to Haiti. We went with a bunch of people from our church. We went with a bunch of nurses from Villanova University. And our mission was to give out medicine to different churches and orphanages across the country. And essentially, you know, for me, it was the most beautiful week of my life, you know, being able to get ingrained in your own culture, really seeing your country for what it is versus what the media portrays it as. And it was unreal. And it was May 29th, 2015. It was 2:30 in the morning, and 4 of us were still awake, and we were playing the card game called Spades. Have any of you guys ever seen like those electric fly swatters that make like the pss, pss, pss sound? So we were using that a lot. Haiti is kind of a muggy country, and we were pretty much having like a fly swatting contest like the whole time we were there. And it's 2:30 in the morning. There was a storm that night, and because it was so hot, we opened up we had like a steel door with like a metal deadbolt that went across it. Open that up to let a breeze come in through the screen door, and all of a sudden you hear this loud pow. And like my initial reaction, like I froze, was that like, who is hitting the electric fly swatter at 2:30 in the morning? Like it just didn't make sense. Like I didn't register what was really happening. but it was a gunshot that went through the front door, and you see a foot kick through the screen door, and 8 guys storm into our compound. The guy sitting across the table from me like realized what was happening, and I was like froze, and like he jumps across the table and like tackles me out of my chair. That guy who shot through the front door turns at us and shoots at us point blank range. So there's like a bullet hole like in the wall behind us, and we're laying on the ground below here because he just tackled me. And like they flip over the table. There's a girl next to us who has a shawl on. They rip that into pieces and they hog tie it. So hands tied behind our back, feet tied at our ankles, hands tied to our feet, and then blindfolded. And they went room to room and stole everything. In that process, one lady got punched in the face. They attempted to sexually assault another lady and failed. There was a pastor who was staying with us, and if you didn't know where his bedroom was, you would have never looked there. So while it was all going on, he's hiding under his bed, and he calls the police, like, send help, we're under attack. And the cops ask, where are you guys located at? Nope, we don't come to that neighborhood, good luck, and just hang up on him. And he then calls the next door neighbor and goes, go outside with your gun and just empty the clip out into the air. We're being robbed right now and under attack. So like now from my vantage point outside, you just hear like all these gunshots going off. I'm thinking like the country is being overtaken. I don't know what's happening, because on top of it, I don't speak Creole, and they're yelling in Creole this whole time. So it was just like pure confusion in that sense. When those gunshots went off, we thought that they had left, but on our compound, we had our house that we stayed at, and we also had like a medical clinic. We thought they left, but they were in the medical clinic stealing medicine and stuff of that sort. And my dad at that time, I mean, from his vantage point, wakes up to gunshots and hearing his son scream like in the living room. He untied himself, crawls out to see if anybody got hit by those first gunshots, closes the steel door, puts the deadbolt in, and starts to untie me. And then you start to hear banging on the doors again, and a whole bunch of yelling in Creole. And like, we're all trying to be quiet because we think we're safe now because the door is deadbolted. And then they start shooting out the windows. So it's pss, pss, and it's just bullets just flying through the house, and we're just all trying to take cover and get out of the way. My dad opens the door back up for them. Like, I think they're gonna kill him, and they rough him up, tie him back up, throw him on top of me, and they go through the house again. That pastor who had called our neighbor had actually done the prayer that morning at the prime minister's office, and he called the prime minister himself saying, send the police, we're under attack. And finally, probably about 45 minutes to an hour after it all started, you hear sirens in the distance, and the bandits, they scurried off. The police came for 5 to 10 minutes, told us take pictures on our phones and cameras if you have them, and bring them by the station if you feel like it, and good luck. And like, that was it. And like that moment of one, after it was all over and like still didn't seem real, didn't even realize it. Like, I pissed myself, urinated myself, didn't even like, it was kind of like that. I don't know if you've ever been in like a massive moment of grief and sadness and like something that actually makes you smile or laugh. It was like, that was kind of that moment. Like, I'm hugging my mom, my dad, my grandma, we're all crying. Shirts all ripped up. It was a mess. But then I was just like, Mom, like, I pissed myself. Like, it was kind of funny. It was lighthearted humor, but it was crazy. I didn't even realize like that happened. But like that happened on a Saturday, and I started grad school and summer workouts on Monday. And, when I came back, mentally, like, I was all messed up, like, I had massive amounts of PTSD, and finally went to see someone that was like the first therapist I'd ever seen. Side note, I think we need to start bragging about our therapists, like, as a culture, like the same way we brag about our personal trainers and stuff like that, because like, we put so much emphasis on our physical health and not on our mental health. Yeah, especially during pandemic times, like, I think mental health is extremely underrated. And I think that's the true flex in a 2020 world, is forget about cars and bling and stuff like that. I think mental health, good, positive mental health and that type of energy is the greatest flex out there. Back to what I was saying though. overcoming like that traumatic experiences for me is what made it, like, got me to the NFL. You know, I just, like, you know, at the time, like, didn't put much work in on the football field, like had really not much of a resume, like I had a solid senior season. But like training like that summer, I don't like there, I mean, still since that moment, like till now, like there's nothing, at least in my mind, that can break me, because it's a place that I go to of gratitude. It's like, yeah, I'm doing sprints. Yeah, I just puked. Yeah, my throat feels like it's on fire. Yeah, like I feel like I'm about to die, but I am not in a third world country, like at peace with the fact that I'm dead right now. Cause like being like on that type of low point, you know, I mean, I personally saw my life flash in front of my eyes and was okay with the fact that like this was it, like lived a good life up to this point. And like getting that, you know, second chance, it's really easy to put a lot of things that we think that are tough, in a sense, you know, quickly back into perspective. And like, I'm human, like naturally things get tough, but then like once I just go right back to that place, it's like, man, you are in, as crappy as it is right now, you're in America. It's 2020 and you're alive. And like, I think that that's something that I've taken with my entire life, and it's brought me just, and it's personally brought like to my own personal success. Like I credit a lot of it to that bittersweet experience. But I think from a getting over it from a mental health perspective, because it was hard for me, honestly, to understand like the why behind it, was getting to a level of empathy, which is something that I genuinely consider myself an empath. Right now, you know, it's hard to come to grips with the facts of why would someone do something like that until me now personally having a child of my own, like not understanding what a country, what a group of people are essentially going through, and what levels would you go through yourself to protect your family, or if you couldn't eat, or if your kids couldn't eat. I personally don't know how low I would go in that sense. And like once I kind of got to that place, it honestly brought me a level of peace. And like it took me a while to even think about potentially even going back to the country. But now I'm like in a space to actually go back, figure out ways for change. Because it's you know, you look at it in a 2020 world, well, this is in a 2015 world. 2 weeks after those guys did that to us, two of them, that whole group went through, they tried to rob another group of missionaries in Haiti, and 2 out of 8 of them got caught. And the police and the town burned them alive in front of everyone and then shot them dead. And like, that's the world we live in. And that, like, I just, it puts things in perspective at the end of the day. And that's honestly why I now have a company called Perspective Global Media. But I know it was a long-winded answer on passion and emotion. But I think that might provide a little bit of context of who I am and how I've at least gotten to the place, you know, I think I am. And it's definitely helped. You know, it took me a long time to come to grips with that experience and to even tell that story. Like that article was I think actually won the Associated Press Sports Story of the Year. I told that story in 2018. That was the first time I think on record that I even told the story. And it happened in 2015, and it was to a reporter that's a really, really good friend of mine to this day that I just knew would get my story out there in the right way. But coming to grips with it and telling it, I mean, it's my truth at the end of the day, and makes me the person who I am.
Anyone have any thoughts? I mean, I've gotten a chance to talk with you, Hakeem, and we've shared, and I know I was blown away by your story. In fact, I encouraged my son. We read it out loud. We actually sat down one day and just sat there, because he's a sophomore in high school, and he's a football player, wow, running back, and so we sat together and we read it together. Like he read it and I listened, and then we just talked about your story, because that's it was amazing. It was impactful to me. But I'd love to hear what others You know, Lisa, I saw your face a lot during that story. Like, how did that land on you? Like, what did that do for your spirit, your body? Like, just listening to the way he's resonating with us today.
Yeah, that was the first time I really got the true gist of it. And I mean, yeah, just hearing it, moment by moment, I just can imagine being in that situation, how scary it was. So, and it's just so, I just wonder, like, if it was the thing that helped you get to your perspective media, like, and it sounds like it was like the most painful thing that you've gone through. Would you say that?
I don't think so. I'll actually, I didn't mean to cut you off. Let me hear your entire question.
Was the most painful thing that you've gone through? Should we as people use that as a starter point to create something as for a purpose in the world, like what we want to share with everybody? Because it seems like you got so much from it. Is that something that helped you create your purpose?
I definitely think so. I think people need to continuously tell their own truths, in a sense. I think we are all inherently special. Most of us are too insecure to tell our truths. Like me personally, I'll go on the record right now. It's probably the first time I'll even tell this story, but something that's been more painful that's happened since Haiti was in 2017. We had a miscarriage. And I've never felt such an array of emotions in such a fast set of time. Like, so I'll give you my full story. Like when I was in the NFL, my rookie year, like it wasn't, you have those young moments filled with ego, and you're like your freshman year of high school or freshman year of college. It's wild in that sense. And that first off season, with at that time the mother of my child, just our ups and downs, this relationship, being together, not being together, those gray spaces in millennial dating, as we all I'm sure know. In that, we had essentially broken up, and then she got pregnant, and it was like boom, it was like the switch just flipped on me instantly, and I was ready to be a dad. Like never, like it was just crazy how the chemicals in your body just shift instantly, and was going right into preseason camp of 2017, so my second year on the Cardinals. And we just started camp for 2 weeks in, mother child's visit me every night at the hotel. And we had the Hall of Fame game, Cardinals versus Cowboys. And then next day was like our first trimester appointment, and she had a miscarriage. And like that was the heaviest thing I've ever dealt with. And that entire month was still preseason camp. Like I had to get a job at the end of the day. Like I was able to get a day off, still fight for a job. And then at the end of that, still get cut. Like it was like getting stabbed twice, boom, get cut. And then it was like not overnight, but get cut, fly to St. Louis because the mother of my child was having the surgery at the time, DNC, after having a miscarriage. And so I flew to St. Louis to be with her. And it was like the next morning, I had 20 missed calls from my agent. Like I have to be on a flight to Detroit because they want to sign me. And like now I'm living in Detroit overnight. And then same time in Arizona, in one of my properties, I had a tenant who I was in the process of evicting, and she tried to kill herself. And like dealing with learning a new playbook, living in a new city, like your child just had a miscarriage and just had the surgery, and you're there, and then you can't be there. Now you're in a new city and you have to focus. Like that, hands down, the hardest thing having, to deal with mentally. And like, I think talking about it, telling your truth, it's liberating in a sense. We walk and we carry our scars and we hide them in a sense. And I think I don't think like, to each his own at the end of the day. Some people deal with trauma and emotions in their own way. And that's why I always say seek therapy, because it's critical. But hardest thing I've had to deal with was definitely that. And like, from my own perspectives, you know, how it can change, you know, the trajectory of your life and like things you truly believe in. Like I was a guy, you asked me, you would have asked me 5-6 years ago, I'd have been, I'm 150% like pro, like not pro, like I wouldn't say pro-choice or not pro-choice, but like we're being genuine here. Like I was a person who firmly just believed if I had a child, like I would, like not if I had a child with someone I didn't want to have a child with, I would get an abortion. In that sense, like that's how I felt. Like that's just me being real. Like after experiencing that, like my views just like it just like it's just wild how moments like that can just change like, you know, everything in your own thought process, in your own life, and your views on just life as a whole in general. And then like now, then instantly just wanting and ready to become a dad, and like had a baby about 12 months right after that. We have our baby girl. That was a long-winded answer and went a little bit deep into my own personal things, but I appreciate the question.
Well, it's clear that that you're a man that has experienced a lot in the, like you said, the short life that you've had, but it's not because you've not allowed those experiences to create who you've become. And a lot of times I think what we do is we run from the trauma and we avoid it, and we try to keep ourselves from feeling it. But once we embrace it and allow it to move through us, we own it a bit more, and it becomes a part of our being and our worth and our message 100%. And our story. Yeah.
I think it comes with a level of, and I challenge people every day to think of this as of not judging yourself. Like once you get to a place of not judging yourself is when you can get to a place of, I wouldn't say being on fire, but a place of living in the now and going with the is of the now, in the sense of, you know, when those things are going on, like I've felt it. Like I genuinely remember like the smallest things, like my emotions, like something I've always never been afraid of is showing my emotions. Like, I cry probably once every 2 weeks. Like that's real. Like like my daughter will do something and I get filled with so much emotion sometimes. It's like I cry. Like I genuinely cry and like think like, oh my gosh, like she's so small and never gonna be like this small ever again. And like just brings me an overflow of emotion. I think that that's okay. And a lot of people aren't scared. Like just people don't like to talk. Like people don't like to talk about crying or emotions and things like that. But like back after the Haiti incident, as soon as we got back and we're working out, and like I could care less. Like if you're a trainer, you can say whatever the hell you want to me and like it's not gonna break me. But before I was in a place where I was healthy from that PTSD, I got like my trainer yelled at me, and like it's a female on top of that. And like not to like put women male in boxes, but like just picture a female trainer just yelling at me and then instantly me just going into tears uncontrollably. Like I don't know why I'm crying right now, and explaining to her like you can't, like right now, like I'm going through some shit and you can't talk to me that way. And like, that's real. And when I, after the miscarriage, like going back and having to play and like practice, same exact thing, like had a rough practice and practice is over. And like, I'm like, overwhelmed just with emotion, just end of practice, can't stop, and like bawling my face off. But like, I think a lot of people judge themselves too heavily in two aspects of it. Like you said, a lot of people run from that trauma, run from emotion because they judge themselves, because they believe that, okay, I'm this high-performing entrepreneur and just everything has to be sunshine, rainbows, efficiency, systems, 24/7, versus like I'm a human being and like shit happens like all the time. And like when you can get to a place of not judging yourself, it just allows you to be in a, like, just when you're ready, you're ready. And when you're actually doing it, you're 100% efficient and you can actually be on offense with what you're doing, but allow yourself to accept, you know, and feel that trauma that you're going through, because it's not, you know, like you said, a lot of people run from that feeling. and it's scared to show your scars, but you gotta let your scars bleed, in my opinion.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, because they're oftentimes the most beautiful part about us, right there. They show our humanity, and they allow us to remember why they're there, because that's where gratitude really starts to come into play.
100%.
For sure. Sam, share with us a little bit about what you were saying about the stigma, that there's a difference between the way men and women release judgment. You were kind of sharing a little bit with Lisa about that. Can you share out loud what you were thinking around it? And maybe some of your own trauma there? Yeah, go for it.
I don't know that I'd necessarily call it my own trauma. I suppose it's kind of like a much more subdued, ongoing thing. So I have major depression and this thing called PMDD. Basically, it's a PMS where your hormones fluctuate so much, but they fluctuate so much to the point that it's classified as a disorder. I'm medicated and my quality of life has like significantly improved. So Hakeem, when you said like celebrate your therapist, I was like, yes, that's so critical, because I wouldn't be where I am today without the people who have helped me get here. And I think that it's such a profound thing. Like, you don't have to be trying to kill yourself to need someone to speak to someone in a situation where you know that like they can't take it anywhere else. And I think that that's like really critical. But in terms of like that like emotional release, I think that like so like what I said in the chat was that like men and women face like very different like stigmas. I know like for me, and this is something that like I've had to say to my other half, is like, you can't just dismiss me when I'm overreacting, because I do still overreact, and like it makes me feel like I have no right to feel emotion, you know. But at the same time, like I know that like I have really close guy friends who have struggled with the fact that they like can't cry to someone, or that they can't like I feel like in some ways like women are expected to get sad but not get angry. And so when a woman gets angry and she ends up crying, it's because like she feels like she has no way to express that anger. And then men are expected to get angry and not get sad. And like, so for a guy to cry, like it's like this very bizarre like everyone is stuck in this like, as society expects us to feel emotion but not too much. Like we can feel it, we just can't. There's like this like weird like in between range. So like you feel like the most extreme joy and then like the most extreme like sadness or terror or like whatever. And like everyone's kind of expected to display only like this weird like in the middle sweet spot. And I know that like as a kid growing up, before I knew that I had PMDD and stuff, like I would have like major fights with my parents like all the time, like threaten to be like, I'm leaving home, like pack a backpack, storm out the door. And then of course I was scared of the dark as a kid, so like I'd come running back and then like bawl my eyes out because I'd make it halfway up the driveway and then be like, oh my god, it's scary. But yeah, it's like really hard to try and deal with that, and people be like, no, you shouldn't display anger, no, you shouldn't like react that much, you know. And it's like, well, how am I supposed to be a robot, you know? And so I felt like very much like suppressed sometimes growing up. And like looking back, like having gained maturity, I know that I can get rather irrational on a bad day. And so like I recognized that like my reactions were extreme, but even so, like I felt like the counter action to that was that like people expected me to not show any at all. And I felt like, oh, I can't show like any anger or any sadness because someone's just going to assume that I'm instantly overreacting to whatever it may be. And so like everyone has their own individual like emotional struggles, and I'm sure that like each of you can sit here and go, oh yeah, I remember a time where I felt like I couldn't display like, oh, I felt really sad, or like you had to like go hide somewhere where no one else can see you just to like display that emotion, or you start like crying out of nowhere and people are like, why are you crying? And you're like, you feel like you have to have an answer. And honestly, like sometimes like just need to cry. Like sometimes you're just stressed and overwhelmed and stuff's happening, and it's not about finding a reason why, it's just about like letting it out. And so that's been like something that I'm still very much like dealing with and learning, but it's like it's difficult thing in today's society to display like extreme emotions in public or in like a group of people, even with like your other half, you know, the person who's like your soulmate or love of your life, or like your closest friends, like even among family, that can be difficult. And so it's yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts, but I'll stop talking now.
I think that hits the nail on the head. And I think it's hard, but we have to get to a place where we become unapologetic about our emotions, and like especially with our other half. Like that's one of the reasons why I'm no longer in a relationship. It's just like I shouldn't have to apologize. Like yes, there's lines that should not be crossed when you're talking about emotions and irrationality and all that type of stuff. Like there's always lines. But if something makes you feel some type of way and you express that, there's no space to judge someone, because we all have our, like there's 7.7 billion people in the world, and we all have a story, and different things affect everyone differently, and we all have our own individual context. Like there could be a song that triggers somebody, and like you not know why, but then we instantly judge, and like, you know what I'm saying? Like there's songs that like, it's just wild. But I think when we get to the place where we can just be it's definitely a liberating feeling when you can be unapologetic about your own emotions.
You know, Dushyant, I was thinking about something you and I had talked about recently about how our cultures also dictate what's okay and what's not okay.
A lot.
And how as a you know, as a man from India, you know, you've had a lot of experience watching the way Americans process things. And I'm just thinking, like, can you react to what we're talking about with regards to, like, you know, approval, disapproval, American culture, Indian culture? Like, I think that's a place where you and I connected deeply, because I loved your culture. I mean, I was so a fan of the inclusion and the collectivism and the beauty and the non-judgment behavior that I saw from all of my new friends in grad school. And that's kind of where we all kind of took it to the next level. But, you know, you've lived here now for some time. So help us with, you know, maybe help us with another perspective here. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
No, thank you. And I think the biggest thing that comes to my mind when I hear you guys talk, first of all, wow. And then just very admirable. And second of all, I think a lot of it comes from the things that we're talking about. They're very connected, right? Being internally aware, self-aware of yourself, being able to look at things in perspective once you understand yourself. And then once you have that understanding, not judging people around you so that they can understand themselves and express themselves as well, is what I take away from this conversation. And when it comes to culture, and I think I joke about this a lot. My understanding of the US was the TV show Friends before I moved here. And that was it. And I was like, oh, that's how life is. In some cases it is, and in a lot of cases it isn't. But at the same time, I think what I do notice is that and I mean, it's definitely not, you know, a 0 or 1 in terms of Indian culture or American culture. But if I look at like a family as a unit, you can define family as anything, right? You live in a dorm with a group of friends, that's your family. You live with a roommate when you're working, that's your family. You live with your siblings and your parents, that's your family. But that space that we allow when we raise our little kids to be able to shout when they're angry, cry when they're sad, you know, the whole thing around, you're a boy, why are you crying? Or like, you know, why are you running slowly? Why are you running like a girl? Those kind of things, if we are aware of them and we can weed them out and develop a culture, like our own culture, to be able to like inculcate all of those values, that I feel like it's easier, of course, easier said than done, but that's like at the crux of it, right? So when it comes to your question, Jalana, when I look at culture now, I kind of just look at it like what's Dushyant's culture, right? Because there are a lot of elements in my life right now that are not at all Indian culture and that are not at all American culture either. And so I'm just kind of like a big fan of, come on, like make your own culture, man. Like it doesn't matter. Like tomorrow, if I go travel to, I don't know, Italy and I like something about it, I want to put that in my culture as well. So why be in a box when you can like spread out and say that, yeah, you know, how do you define American culture? Why do I need to align with a certain culture? I'm just going to do my own thing and develop my own safe space in my family unit, whatever definition that might be.
You're muted, Jelana. But I love that shot. That's as real as it gets. You're muted, Jelana. I'm not sure if you know that.
I was just acknowledging that that's pretty awesome that we're all creating our own culture right here, right now.
Yeah.
Because this is probably something you don't see everywhere. Just having some real talk with real people.
Yeah.
Not being afraid to just say what's really on our minds and not judging anyone for what's on their mind.
Yeah.
So,
and it shapes us as individuals, right? If you look at our like connection maps, like we're all on this call. I haven't met any one of you before except Jelana, but like now with your stories and your experiences and what you're sharing, that has shaped me as an individual, right? So that my universe has now moved in a little different direction slightly because of this conversation, and I can spread that. And that's beautiful and that's powerful, right? And so all of that is self-awareness, right? It's complete self-awareness to be like, what am I going through and what is it making me feel? And how will I act differently or maybe not differently as a result of that, which I think is an amazing thing to be able to like process as a human being.
Less judgment, more empathy. That self-awareness aspect is massive.
It's amazing.
I pride myself on with other people is I'm so open and like not judgmental with other people. And then when it comes to myself, I'm like so hard on myself.
Yeah.
I place so much like expectation on myself. So that's definitely something that I need to like learn to like, apply the way I treat others to myself.
There's I know we're a minute over, but like there's a concept in call it like spirituality or anything, but it's the basic idea of being able to, it loosely translates into like leaving your body and staring back at yourself, right? And so when you are experiencing something, if you see a best friend or a loved one experience something and you're like, man, you should not be doing that, or like you should not be putting yourself through that, move out of your own body and stare back at yourself, and like you should be like, the one individual I should care about the most, or one of the individuals I should care about the most in the entire world should be yourself, because if you don't do that, you can't care about other people. So give yourself that stare and be like, no, you're not treating yourself very well right now. So you're going to have to stop doing that.
That's real. And Jelana, by the way, I actually have time if anyone's okay with going over for a few minutes. In that sense, I do have some time. I'm actually curious, Chase, if Chase is still there as the only college athlete in this chat, just kind of what some of his thoughts are on just judgment and perspective, especially just being a college athlete in a college space, which is just a completely different environment in its own, in my own opinion.
For sure.
Yeah, being I kind of say it's my experience is a little different nowadays because I started off playing team sports when I was younger because I always played football and baseball, basketball. I'd say when like a community, like the team is kind of more close together. You're not like, you kind of forget every like judgment you had on like certain kinds of people, or if that kind of person is in the locker room with you. And college track is like that too, sort of. It's just there's a lot more different personalities because you have the cross country team with the track team and sprinters and jumpers, and everyone's like different. But after a few years like that, you all kind of band together and you all kind of form your own beliefs and you forget anything that you used to think. And I don't know, you kind of pick up new ways to look at the world, and there's a lot to learn, like pick up from being on like a college sports team.
That's super real. I think, I mean, these conversations are critical. I think people these conversations are shied away from in most things that, I don't know. I don't feel uncomfortable, at least in this setting, Some of the things I may have shared may have, slight hesitation, but I think once you go through, I just think a lot, I don't know, I feel like there's with social media, like as someone who prides himself on his expertise in the digital landscapes, I think a lot of people demonize the social platforms for, how do I explain it? For turning people bad or making people into people that they might not have been. In my personal opinion, I think social media it's a mirror of most people. Like, I don't think Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook or TikTok made you a bad person. You just might have been a bad person, and that's being amplified now on these platforms. But one thing I like to challenge or mention is on these social platforms, the what's flooding these platforms, because these people right now tend to be a lot louder, is negativity. And I think that people with, honestly, some of the ideas that are here in this conversation right here as a challenge is making positivity louder. I think we go to social media to complain about something that just happened to us. We go to social media to, obviously sometimes celebrate our wins in those cases. We go to social media when things bad happen in our life, and we're just letting everybody know kind of what just happened. This person passed, this just happened, or something of that sort. I just think it's the responsibility of people who do have some type of level of self-awareness, some type of level of empathy, kindness, and positivity within them. I think it's our responsibility to make positivity louder, like on these social platforms, because it's not natural on social platforms for people to simply be kind and put out messages that actually reflect something that's just pure positivity in that sense.
I love it. And it is just a vehicle. I mean, it's like anything else. Like, we can choose to use it for good or for evil, and we'll just have to choose consciously to use it for good, to spread positivity, to spread light, to spread empathy, to spread self-awareness, and all 100%. Of those incredible things. Let me just say, because I know we've got probably just another minute with Hakeem.
Logan just asked a question too, by the way.
I don't know if you saw Logan. That. No, I didn't see a question. Let's answer Logan's question. Then I've got one more thing to say about what we're going to be talking with. It looks like he says, how are you able to be self-reflective in this moment rather than being self-reflective in retrospect? That's good. It's a good question. Like, being moment by moment self-reflective in the moment.
I think that's just me. I don't know if it's DNA or not. One of my major theses in life was kind of like a clouds and dirt perspective, meaning I live in the clouds and I live in the dirt, meaning I look at life from a 30,000 feet perspective at all times, but I'm also in it, if you kind of know what I mean. And I don't know if it's natural. It might almost be more of a muscle of not every moment you're in, because I do live in every moment just naturally. I don't know why I always think, I think reflective all the time. I think of like the smallest inflection points and how it has such a massive difference in every single moment. Like, I can't tell you, like every single day, there's this point in the day where I'm just like, damn, like me before this talk, stopping to go get a coffee at the coffee house across the street before I came here, like just doing that, by not doing that, like, crazy and weird as it sounds, like that shifts the entire trajectory of my life. I don't know how, but 10 years, 7 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 months, it can just make like that. Like, I think the smallest things make the biggest differences. But when you're just aware of that already, when you're in every single moment, I think it's easier to reflect, look at life from a 30,000 foot perspective in every moment you're essentially going through, but also be in that moment. I think a lot of people become a slave to their schedules and become almost robotic in what they do in every aspect of their life. And it's like you're almost over, what's the word I'm looking for? Over, not productive, over efficient. I think over efficiency can turn off the vibrations of situations. And when you can loosen yourself up a little bit, it allows you to be almost flexible in your thought process without being like, I do live by my calendar at all moments, but I'm not afraid to, I don't know, like I have a call right now, but it's canceled. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we're in this moment, and that's looking at it from a 30,000. I think that's looking at it from a 30,000 foot perspective versus saying, Jelana, I got to do a hard stop. She's looking, and then like, except no, I think we're all having a great moment here, and for me, I think that's just more important in the long term, because you just don't know. I don't know. Like that's just my own personal thought on that. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And don't you think part of it's like prioritizing the opportunity to impact the world too? Like you're looking at like the two things that you've got going on, and like if there's a trade-off and I can make an impact on some lives, on some humans, on trajectory, on thoughts, like my trade-off is much easier if I'm considering the way I show up in this world.
100%. And it also goes back to what we said earlier, which is not judging yourself. Like I don't judge myself that I just missed this call 10 minutes ago. Do you know what I'm saying? Where a lot of people are just like, oh gosh, like that's, I think when you get to that place, it allows you to be in every moment and also look at it because you're just not constricted, and you're not a slave of your schedule. That makes sense.
That's good. That's good. Logan, did that help?
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, like I just kind of find myself in situations where it's not like I'm unhappy with what I'm doing, you know, like I know my motivations and what I'm working towards and all that. But then, you know, sometimes after something, I look back and be like, oh, well, maybe I could have done this better, and maybe then I would have been here, you know, like maybe it's just being too perspective.
Yeah, I think that's two things. I think that might be a level of judging yourself, and then it's just a level of, it could be possibly it could be impatience. You know, you're setting these different benchmarks for yourselves of, okay, and if I do all this stuff in 2 months, I'll be here. And then you get to 2 months and you look back, you're like, damn, I should have this different, this different, this different, this different, this different. And I think it's our goals. I think we need to shift our ideas on what a goal is and what a goal means to us. Because I think a lot of people underestimate the value of the journey, and actually finding something where the journey actually, that grit in that journey, that those hard times in that journey actually brings you happiness, and not you're just going to live through 10 years of shit for a 10-second victory that doesn't really mean anything to you. You kind of get what I mean? Where I think if the perspective of our goals are flipped around for like what we want to do, and I think there's good to have mini goals and there's good to have like macro goals. So that journey is just always, because I mean, I'd argue that the journey of getting to the NFL was way more fun and like it was more crazy and more exciting than actually playing in the NFL. Wild as that sounds, and like that's real. And then like that process ends once you're there. It's like, okay, now what? Do you know what I mean? And like that can bring honestly a level of sadness in a lot of people's faces because their goals aren't as big as they probably could be, and the actual destination is not as pretty as you thought it was in that sense. Where if you find a thing that makes that journey, that, you know, just like the movie, that pursuit of happiness, not like, I think happiness in general, like I think happiness needs to be equated to success in a 2020 world and not anything materialistic. But I think happiness, it's like, I don't know, I think we put goals on pedestals and think when we get to that goal, that's going to equate to happiness. Whereas I think we need to find, like, the pursuit of happiness needs to make us happy as well, if you know what I'm saying. Versus like, I'm going to be sad, hate my life, be completely depressed because I'm fighting for this thing that's going to make me happy. And I don't think, I think that just narrative and that perspective needs to be like just tweaked a little bit. That ultimately will bring us more happiness and just a continued, just a state of happy.
Good. Lisa said something about the journey, and the goal should be based on our values, and our values are kind of, they're derived from what we're passionate about, which is what we started this conversation with, you know,
100%.
The things that really bring happiness.
And when you know what your value, and when you know what your values and your whys are, it allows you to pivot effortlessly on something that continues to light that on fire. Like, as soon as like Jelana and I, we had this conversation on Wednesday, and you're mentioning, you know, this possible grant that can make massive changes for this association, and like that aligns with my values. And like instantly I could see my life like shifting towards a trajectory of like severely being a part of this and helping, you know, this grow to whatever it could ultimately be. But it's like with zero hesitation, because it aligns with your value. And now that's just another notch on the belt of, you know, your pursuit of happiness.
I love that. I love how your reaction, I'll just share it authentically with everybody. You said, do you want me to go talk to Melinda Gates for you? Because I will. That's what you said to me when I shared with you about the equality can't wait. I said, yeah, she's a big part of it. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to go talk to her for you. I'll do that. I love that. Fearlessness, a force of nature. Like, why not go talk to Melinda Gates, right? Because this is what we're going to do. I love that. I love that. Well, I'll share this much, and then I know we definitely need to give you some time to spend some time with your daughter and the family, and having the weekend start for all of us. But next week we have Michael Tennant coming on, and he's going to be talking about the journey of empathy. He actually built a card game around the concept of empathy, and traveled to, I think, 42 states and played this game hundreds of times over, learning about exactly what Hakeem said, is how do you build a life of empathy and create empathy in your journey. And it certainly starts with the things we talked about today: passion, no judgment, self-awareness, and no hesitation. I think that was the creme de la creme there. Hakeem, what are some last thoughts that you have for us, just as we take away and process the things that you've shared today?
I think like something that's helped me find a lot of joy lately is a mantra is of just micro speed and macro patience. Micro speed, so in the micro, just be on fire, like know what you want and actually don't be scared to actually execute on it. I think we need to match our like like I don't want to what's the word? I don't want to like put hustle culture like on a pedestal, because I think there's a balance of everything. Everything in life comes with balance. But I think we need to match our audacity of our ambitions with our hustle and our execution. You kind of get what I'm saying. And I think that comes with a level of, when I say micro speed, macro patience. In the micro, we need to be on fire, like on offense, ripping and running, like go, like being a high performer and going and getting it. But in the macro, we need to be like extremely patient. I think we need to change our relationship with time. I think our generation is going to live to 120 years old, all of us. So I think we have a lot more time than we think. And we've been subconsciously groomed that when we get to 60, life is over. And we've got, I mean, in my opinion, we got another 60 years. In reality, you got another 40 years in today's perspective in that sense. But I think we need to change our relationship with time. And that comes with adjusting our goals that allow us to be more patient, but reverse engineering them so we can actually be with ridiculous amounts of speed in the short term. That's really mine. And just less judgment, more empathy. Like that's real. That brings a lot of happiness, because as we judge all of the sensory overload out there on all of the social platforms, that slows us down. Like I honestly don't consume any content, because like it's at the end of the day, I would like to put out me at the end of the day, and not consuming anything just kind of puts me in a place of like, whatever I've gotten here, whatever I've done, I'm going to continue to do and document that and then put it out. But I really enjoyed this conversation. I don't think I've ever had a talk that kind of went in this direction. Just loved you moderating this, Jelana. I appreciate just the conversation flow of this talk, and the audience, you guys' engagement and interactions, and going deep on you guys' own stories as well, made it to be an amazing safe space for us to just, feel like we all got closer here today.
Right. And we're looking forward to seeing more and more of how we can do things from that micro speed and macro space together. There's a lot of world to change here. 7.7 billion people to impact. So let's run at it together and do it with our passion. Thank you again, Hakeem. Deeply appreciate you. Looking forward to spending a lot of time with you on Equality Can't Wait, and just growing the organization that you have, your perspective, and having you back on athLEDA Live very soon.
That sounds great. I appreciate you guys.
Have a great weekend.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Take good care.